at that. People are excited to have us back. Already alike. What is up, everybody? Welcome. We're back after our long off season. We have returned.
Yeah, 1 week.
Yeah,
I'm joined by sitting Tom Brady here.
And you know who I'm with. I'm always with nice old good old Booger man. You know that. So how's everything going? You surviving without football?
Yeah, well, we still got football with the XFL.
We do.
I mean, it's not the NFL, but you just change the N to an X, and it's still football.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, guys, we'd love to have you call in. We love it. We want you guys to be a part of the show. As always, just click that link. Very simple. Come on with video or anything on your phone, tablet, computer, anything. But anyways, John, you said it. Yes, Scott, I know it is about time. We are back. Sorry. Those long off seasons are brutal, I know. But so, John, you mentioned it, and we'll start right there. NFL season's over, but we do have the XFL now. And, you know, it's a league that the first time around, you saw massive amounts of marketing and publicity for months and months and months leading up to it. This time, you really didn't see that much until late in the season. There wasn't a ton of publicity behind it. They're not trying to be, it seems like, bigger than they are. But I thought that at least the very first week, their debut was an incredible success.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how they're doing a little bit. I'm not shocked, but right. I think the difference this time, Drew, is, and we talked a little bit about this before we came on. I think Vince McMahon the first time was out in the forefront. He was kind of the face of it, and being a showman and sort of trying to get a storyline. And I think this time he's letting his people in the league run the league. I mean, he's behind it, but he's sort of like the silent partner this time. And I think that's made a huge difference. And he's letting the football kind of speak for itself, and some of the new things they're doing in the league during games speak for itself rather than him being the vocal mouthpiece. And I think that's the recipe for success so far.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. They need to, they started a while back. Their whole statement was that they're not going to try and be a gateway to the NFL. They want to be a standalone league. They don't want that comparison. But seriously, if you go look, I put a comment on Facebook about this week. If you go look at their website, 9 out of 10 articles talk about a guy trying to get back to the NFL, or an NFL team might take a look at him if he has a good year. And so I think they need to continue to distance themselves a little bit more from it, because you don't want to be, as soon as you get caught up being a feeder system to the NFL, you fail. You're done.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No. It's just, I think that's the ultimate mistake that they can make. But I think they're on the right track. Otherwise, I will say they need to start telling their announcers, whoever's in charge of the production, they need to start telling their announcers to support the product a little bit more, because you can listen to a couple of these guys. I don't know how much of the games you've watched, but you can listen to a couple of these announcers and tell that they do not believe in this league at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that's the case, I hate to say it like this, you could always get new announcers. So, as far as, they have quite a few NFL players in this league.
They do.
And I'm not even talking about shitty ones. There's some, Eli Rogers, Cardale Jones, Landry Jones. I know I'm leaving people out.
Coney Ely, great defender that was on the Panthers, had a great Super Bowl, incredibly inconsistent otherwise. They've got a ton of stars in the league.
Yeah. And I mean, and I obviously, if the quality of play is better, I think that helps. It helps your product, but like you said, I don't think they want to be NFL this and NFL that. I think if
No.
they're subtle with it, which I think they're doing sort of that, maybe a little bit more would be even better. But I think they're if we're comparing it to the other league that didn't make it this year in the AAF, I don't think there's really any
No,
comparison.
there's no comparison to those two leagues for countless reasons. The AAF and XFL are absolutely nothing alike. But I will say this: we're talking about the presentation of the games. I mean, once again, guys, if you've watched the NFL or if you've watched the XFL and you have an opinion on it, please call in and let us know what you think. But we're talking about the presentation some. The XFL does one thing, and I kind of teased this to you before we got on the show. They do one thing that I absolutely love that I didn't know how much I needed in football. I really didn't, and I really wish that the NFL could do this, but the Players Association would never allow it. But they interview the quarterbacks or whoever it was that turns the ball over, like immediately. Like they throw an interception, they take their helmet off, they go to the sideline, they bitch at their coach, they go sit down, and a reporter shoves a microphone in his face. I fucking love it. Thank you. Greatest shit ever.
Yeah,
love it.
I mean, imagine that though, Drew, in the NFL with a Beckham Jr. or
Yes.
one of the diva receivers. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just I
would like to watch it so bad,
but it would be a recipe for disaster. I mean, you may have a fight, especially with a male sideline reporter and a receiver or a quarterback who just throws a pick or.
Well, you've already seen it once or twice with Matt McGloin, the one who got benched because he said his whole coaching staff needed to be replaced or whatever during a halftime interview. He's sitting there in the same damn game, and they go over to him, and you can tell the whole look on his face is like, "You've got to be fucking kidding me!" Like he's just looking at him like, "Really?" I love it. It's great TV. If you're gonna have something you've got to make it different. You can't have the same type of presentation. They're doing a couple of different camera angles I'm not a fan of, but you shove a microphone in a pissed off dude's face. I mean, it's excellent. That's a Vince McMahon thing, I guarantee you. Just knowing him and being a fan of wrestling as a kid, kind of knowing a little bit about him, that's a Vince McMahon idea, 100%.
Yeah, Eric Dickerson's why can't I be on the sideline being reporter now?
Exactly.
I would have been good. Yeah, I would have been good at this than trying to play the straight man. So, yeah, I like it too. Obviously, I think we both know we're not going to see that on the NFL.
No,
they might borrow a few things or whatnot. That's not going to be one of them. And like you said, I don't even think it's the league not wanting. I think it's going to be the Players Association that says we don't want that. As players.
No,
so.
they're not gonna they would never expose their players to that and put that, but I love the fact that the XFL just says, fuck that. You can take a lot less money. I'm shoving a mic in your face. Just be happy you're playing football. I love it. It's excellent. It's exactly what it needs to be. It's exactly what it needs to be. But I do think it's entertaining. Stuff like that does make it entertaining. I'll give them that. I'm going to be curious to see how it stands up, but I will say so far, watching some of the games this weekend, even in week 2, it does seem to feel like I'm watching the games, and the first week it was an offensive, just ridiculously offensive shootout I watched, and then I watched this game today, and it's an incredible defensive battle with some actually impressive football going on. And I do think this is something that can last. They do have a lot of talent there. They just really have to, I'll say it one more time before we move on, they've got to stop with the at least articles on your own website comparing yourself to the NFL. You have to. You got.
I mean, they can't compare themselves to the NFL because But I think the huge difference between the two leagues. I mean, this is not rocket science. Here is talent level, and you can't put yourself in that category. What you need to do is embrace those things you're doing differently and say, check this out. How cool is this? And that sort of stuff. I think they're doing that, but like you said, maybe not so much of the NFL tie-ins and whatnot. Let the play, they got players. They got NFL players.
They do.
So let them speak for you. You know what I mean? You don't have to.
Absolutely.
And people who are
Yeah.
watching this know Cardell Jones and Landry Jones and Eli Rogers and others.
Mhm.
They know, even if they don't know what team they were on in the NFL, they know they come from the NFL.
Well, see, that's where the XFL was smart. At the drafts where they threw you into where you pretty much had to be a star in that area at some point in time, at least for like the biggest players on your team. Like they made you pretty much go to a team that was in a region that you were a star at or went to once before. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do and how it stacks up as the weeks go on. But please give me 6 turnover games and let me hear from the quarterback on the 6th. I have to.
Yeah.
I just want to keep it up, guys. You're doing excellent. But man, I want to move on, John, because like I said, this is Rough in the Passer. This is about the NFL. And it is the off season, of course, but there's so much going on. The football season really doesn't have much of an off season anymore.
Nope.
And I kind of want to start with one of the things that's been dominating, it seems like, the news cycle lately. And that's a lot of reports that you hear about Joe Burrow and about how he may not want to go to Cincinnati, shocker, at number 1. Do you see him actually pulling in Eli and kind of forcing his way to another team? What do you think happens in the end with Burrow?
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. I think the Burrow and his dad is very active in his career.
Very.
I think this stuff's going on. I think it's more behind the scenes than Eli and Archie with the Chargers. Back during that draft year in 2004, so I think they're trying to do it on the low. Now, what will be interesting to see, Drew, is if they don't make any kind of headway. Is now do they get more vocal? Do they just say, you know what, we don't want to go to the Bengals, and we're going to get it out there? It's not going to be a secret anymore. Like we're just going to say, hey, if you draft us, maybe we won't sign,
right?
Or you draft us, you need to trade us here and what you can get.
Well, see, that's where it becomes dangerous to me, because I'll tell you right now, the thing that's most concerning with me with this situation that makes me think it could actually happen and that he could force his way out of Cincinnati is the way Cincinnati's ownership has ran that team forever. And it's their philosophy. They are stubborn to a fault, and they don't give a shit about anyone except for how they feel. They don't care about public perception. They don't care about fan perception. Nothing. Whatever they feel in that room is all that matters. They don't think about anything else. It's been the problem with that team to a fault for a long time. If I could easily see that if he starts pulling and his camp starts pulling some of this shit where he's trying to force his way out, that they just throw in the towel and say, fuck it and move on. Like if they get to the point where one person in that room has the viewpoint of, okay, if he really doesn't want to be here, screw it. They don't bend and change, and they're not the type. This is like the absolute very last team ownership-wise that you would want to do this situation with if you didn't want him to leave. Because this is the type of team that could easily just say, just go. Forget it. Go.
Yeah, well, the sad part is, and obviously being a Steeler fan, I not really rooting for the Bengals, obviously.
Right.
But as a football fan, I'll take my Steeler fandom and put that aside. You sort of feel bad for these teams that have the number 1 pick when guys don't want to go there. I mean, how are they going to get better if the best players don't want to play there?
We had it with Andrew Luck. Remember, he stayed in school because he didn't want to go to Carolina. I mean,
So, I don't like it. I get it. I mean, I put myself in Joe Burrow's shoes. I probably wouldn't be enthralled with making Cincinnati where my football career continues. I can't be a hypocrite, but I just don't like when it happens. I didn't like when Eli did it, like you said, with Andrew Luck. There's been other guys that not even in the number 1 slot, but have kind of told teams I'd rather not be picked by you. I just think it's sort of a bad precedent. It's never going to go away. I mean, you can't make a rule against it. Agents are going to get involved. In this case, dads, Archie Manning, Joe Burrow's dad, and so
Yeah.
um, it's. I think it comes with the territory. You hate it. If you're a Bengals fan, you're like, here's what I consider probably one of the next best bets for
Yeah.
maybe a franchise quarterback, and he don't want to go
Yeah.
there. And so,
Right.
how do you get somebody like when, like you said, when the franchise is so poorly run that people don't even want to go there, whether it be in the draft or even free agency? How are you
Yeah.
going to improve? And so,
Yeah.
it's a frustrating thing if you're a fan of a team that falls into that category. Like, what do we do? And
Right.
you know,
No,
I
that's
guess
exactly it.
you have to start entertaining, quietly. You have to see what you can get for that number one pick. I'm not saying you trade it, but you at least test the waters and see what kind of
Right.
haul, if any, you can get. I think if the GM in Cincinnati is not doing that right now,
Yeah.
even just dialogue. I'm not saying he's seriously considering it, but just opening lines of dialogue, then he's not doing his due diligence as a GM.
No, 100%. You got that right. They have to be making those calls. They have to be they have to see what's out there, because I know for a fact multiple teams are interested. A lot of teams up top are interested, which we'll
Yeah.
get to in just a moment. We've actually got a question from somebody that's watching the show. Scott, thanks so much for asking the question. And remember, guys, you can call in as well. But Johnny asked a really good question here, and that's do you think Dez Bryant comes back to football? We're kind of going to talk about one number one diva wide receiver here in a little bit, but we'll talk about this one first. What do you? I kind of forgot about Dez Bryant. That's why I want to talk about this, because I'm just going to do it on the fly here. But what do you think? Do you think we see Dez Bryant play football next year?
No, it's crazy to think some of these receivers that aren't in the league with the talent. And so let's call what's going on. Let's talk about what's going on. These teams, they're never going to admit it, but there's a blacklist.
Yeah.
Like kind of weird. Don't touch these guys. And apparently Des Bryant's on it. I'll be honest with you. I'm shocked when some of these guys. I know they're divas and they're mouthpieces and they talk too much and they can be disruptors and if you want to use the term cancers in the clubhouse, if you want to go that far. But I'm surprised some of these teams really just don't say, you know what, we're kind of a bottom dweller team. We'll sell a few more tickets. We can always recut. We can always cut them if things get really terrible. So when I see a guy like Des Bryant and others, someone we're going to talk about, not get signed anymore, I just think there's communication in the league. The league will never admit it. Teams will never admit it. But there's dialogue behind the scenes like, no one signed this. No one signed this guy. Kind of an unwritten rule.
Yeah, there could. I mean, there is to a degree, I think, with certain players in this league, but I don't necessarily think that's what's going on with Dez. I mean, he was gonna have a shot with the Saints until like the most ridiculous injury ever. I mean, I honestly think that injury right there that pretty much ended his career was a major eye opener to the dude. And I'm not a Cowboy fan. I'm not a Des Bryant fan. I never have been. But if he has stayed healthy and he actually has become a little more humble, but still has, the skills to play, I can see him coming back next year. I don't think he's on that list of the players that we're about to talk about is on. And that list does exist, but I don't know if Dez is on it. And I do see him playing. I don't think he starts the season with a team. I think we're going to start to see a major trend of this, of a lot of these star players at the end of their career coming on to teams midway towards the end of the season, jumping on and, ring chasing a little bit, if you will, which is what Dez was doing when he went to New Orleans the first time and got hurt.
Yeah.
But I do think that Dez Bryant's actually going to play football somewhere. I don't know for how long. I don't know how effective he will be. I don't know if it's going to be a good idea, but I do think that we will see him play.
Well, he's not super old. Like you said, the injury might be the biggest thing more than even the mouthpiece part.
Yeah.
And, it's just crazy when you see all these injuries in the league. I know the season's over now, but when the league is in session and these guys still don't, get a flyer, get a shot. And when I see that, I just say there's sort of a do not touch kind of label on some of these guys.
Well, speaking of do not touch labels, if there's that's a perfect segue. So if anybody has a do not touch label on them, or if a presumptive do not touch label on them, it would probably be Mr. Antonio Brown. The dude, it's been quite an entertaining. I can't wait to find out that this was all some big troll job for some multi-million-dollar movie he's been producing, but his downfall has been pretty ridiculous. But after finally being quiet, not having the cops called on him for like a week, you got some news today, actually, that he's gonna be at the NFL Combine coming up, and that he's gonna be meeting with teams. Now, granted, this is just a meeting with teams, and there are about 1 million hurdles for him to clear before he could even have a chance to. But you know what I'm about to ask you. Does AB return in 2020?
Man, if you gun to head, I'm going to say no. I just think there's just too much stuff going on there. If it's with anyone, I'll give this kind of disclaimer. If he comes back in 2020, it's going to be with a bottom dweller team that doesn't have much to lose from the signing, and they want to sell tickets, and they sort of want a little bit of attention for the wrong reasons. And those teams are not super plentiful. So, like you said, the other issue is he may be suspended even when he gets re-signed. Yeah. So if you're a team, right, do you sign him knowing like there may be a suspension coming right after that? And so there's just so much. The guy is just something's loose upstairs. He can't stay off social media. 1 minute he's saying, Big Ben sucks and he's a rapist, and the next minute, I didn't know how good I had it with you, Ben, and I'm sorry. And he's just so, bipolar at this point. And I think there's some medical stuff going on, man. I'm not trying to make an excuse for him. When he got knocked out by Vontaze Burfict, a lot of things changed. I'm not saying that's the only reason he's like he is. But I think
he's always been the person he was. He just didn't get paid, and he didn't have the power he had. If you watch and read any interviews on him, he's always been like that. I do think there's some major mental issues, and that hit probably didn't help at all. But he's always been the type of person you're seeing now. And I kind of was laughing as I wrote this damn banner, because there's absolutely no fucking way AB plays football in 2020. I'm sorry.
No,
there's just not. There's not.
I don't think so, especially when people look at how he lasted a week in New England. If they say, man, if New England can't even get him straight, we probably can't either. And, I talked about he apologizes to Big Ben, and then 3 days later, he's on a radio show, and he takes another shot at Ben Roethlisberger. So this guy doesn't know up from down, and teams, believe me, you know this just as well as I do, Drew. Teams are monitoring this stuff. None of this stuff is sneaking by anybody, and I think there's dialogue behind the scenes like, we're not going to sign someone like this. There's lesser, yes, he's talented, but we can take someone who's lesser talented that'll work harder and could help us out without the distraction and the circus that comes along with the player.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. There's absolutely no way he's going to come back. I don't know of a team. I don't even think a team is that desperate that would want to sell tickets. Like this is
Yeah.
to me, it's way beyond that at this point with Antonio Brown, and the fact that I was a little shocked that he could set these meetings up at the combine. Like it's got to be outside. He's got to have it set up some other way. I don't see the NFL setting these meetings up with him inside during the actual combine. Maybe I haven't read all the specifics of the deal, but it's just weird to me.
Well, maybe it's in the parking lot.
Hey, it went, dude. With Antonio Brown, honestly, you might be blowing up his spot.
Hey, that's Antonio Brown. And listen, if the weather's good, we're gonna do it in the parking lot. Let's just watch the weather reports and stay tuned.
Hey, I mean, Tio and his driveway was entertaining. So who knows?
Yeah. I don't even know if he has an agent. Like he
doesn't have an dude. He doesn't have an agent. And when Drew Rosenhaus fires you, you've got fucking problems.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
if that guy drops you, that's bad. Like that's the epitome of how bad it is when Drew Rosenhaus says thanks but no thanks.
Yeah, big time. All right, man. Well, moving on. I got just a couple more things before we wrap up the show today, y'all. We were talking about Burrow a little earlier, and we'll be talking about the ridiculous amount of quarterback turnover that we're going to see this offseason, a lot more next week. But throughout the last week or so, you've seen Cam Newton come out a couple of times and say, I'm staying in Carolina unless they get rid of me, blah, blah, blah. It's been all, I'm Carolina's quarterback. I'm the Panthers quarterback. That's not changing. And Tepper, for the most part, has kind of said the same. Until the other day, I don't know if you caught what he said, but he pretty much asked a reporter, well, is he healthy? I have no clue. We'll talk about it when he's healthy. I mean, he snapped back at him, and Tepper, Tepper, he came from you guys. He's not the type of person to snap and get like pissy at these type of questions. He knows how to handle himself. And it's very telling to me the way he answered that question. I've kind of watched how he behaves since he's become the owner. And this is the first time I've seen him get very defensive and to me, it feels like he's already made up his mind. And I know for a fact the Panthers are trying to trade up in the draft. I know for a fact that they're trying to trade up. I've heard from people that work very closely with the team that it is happening. What do you think with Cam? What do you think when you hear this news? And Tepper. The reason I ask this is because he is from the Steelers. You know the man, you're familiar with him. When you hear him kind of lose his cool, kind of snap with an answer like that, what does it make you think about Cam's future in Carolina?
Yeah, and I did hear the comment, and so it's a great question. I think his days are numbered. I think Cam is probably going to be a draft day trade. Now, where and for who, and is that allow Carolina to get Joe Burrow, which would make a lot of sense with their current coaching staff, the way it's assembled. I don't know if it's going to be for that, but I think they're both dancing. And the dance is kind of a last dance. You know what I mean? It's not a dance. Let's make up and kiss and make up. I think this is sort of a very lukewarm dance, and let's not be really terrible to each other, but we don't love you that much, and you don't love us that much, and let's see what we can work out where we'll both come out of this, as best we can. Let's be honest, the situation's not good, whether he gets traded or not on draft day or happens later. They're not going to just give him away. I don't believe nothing. I think he's too talented of a player. We see some terrible quarterback play in the league. They're not just going to give him away for a 4th or 5th round pick or something silly like that. But I think, I think Carolina would like to move him. I think it's just what's the max we can get and still be okay. I think if Will Grier would have looked a little better than he did, maybe that would have this trade would have be easier. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that they're trying to make a deal where after they move him, whether it's Burrow or a signing or a trade for someone else, they want to have a starting quarterback. In that position.
That's what's going on. It's a major game of chess right now, and Tepper's 100% trying to figure out exactly how he's going to get that quarterback of the future because he does not want to do a full rebuild. He does not want. I mean, you lose Kuechly to retirement. You get rid of Greg Olson. You cut the entire coaching staff. You bring in a ton of young people, sign them to massive long contracts. It feels like a rebuild. And in all honesty, it really is. But a rebuild really starts when you get rid of that quarterback and you get that quarterback that you bring in that your name is attached to, which Cam Newton has nothing to do with him. And so I do think this is a chess match of kind of figuring out what pieces you can get. But it's a major, major chess match going on in the media. And I'm in a lot of Panther fan groups. And it's insane how divided and how brutal the arguments and conversations have gotten between fans over this situation. And every single comment that one of them makes, the other side just attacks everyone. And it's sad to watch as a fan base. Honestly, it's pathetic. It drives me fucking crazy. But I do think that they are trying. It's 100% a chess game. They are trying to move on, but Cam's also trying to put out a lot of these comments. So no matter where he goes, he comes off. I mean, what is he supposed to say? He's been hurt. Yeah. He hasn't played great. He doesn't have the legs to stand on to really say anything except for "I want to be here."
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, I think Carolina's trying to deal him. But
they are.
I think, if they trade him and then they don't have a viable starting quarterback, they lose. Yeah. They don't want to lose in this deal.
No. They can't lose in this deal. And there are a million quarterbacks coming out this year. There are tons. I mean, they're not in the draft. There are a couple I like. But there's gonna be so much quarterback turnover, which, guys, that's gonna be the focus of our show a lot next week. We're gonna be doing a little bit of a preview, a breakdown of where we think all the quarterbacks are going to be going and kind of lay out exactly who is available since the picture is becoming a lot more clear as we approach the draft. But, you mentioned the timeline on Cam. I wanted to touch on that for a minute because you said draft day trade. I don't think it makes it to the draft. I honestly think
they deal him before then?
Yeah, I think he's traded the next month. I think he's traded probably before the middle of March, and I'd say I have no clue who it's going to be. I have no clue what it's going to be for. That has a lot to do with the Burrow conversation we were talking about. If they have any thought in their head that they can get Burrow or the person that they really want, which I do think is Burrow, I can see him moving him. I think he's gone before the draft. If he's not gone by the draft, I don't see him leaving. I do not think – it makes no sense to me. He makes too little money. He's too easy to trade. If you can't get the deal done before the draft, you've got to have that – you have to have that plan in place with your quarterback by the draft, and I just can't see Carolina doing it.
Yeah, there was a couple months back, there was some talk with the – I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's just a beat writer making stuff up, but there was talk that the Steelers, when they were having all their quarterback issues, and they're still talking with the Steelers through that. What kind of Ben Roethlisberger's going to be back even when he recovers from injury. And I think what the injury showed is Rudolph and Evelyn Hodges are not going to be able to carry this team forward. And so, and you got to prepare for life after Big Ben. There's not a lot of sand left in this hourglass besides injury. Forget the injury, but just in general. Look, you got Phillip Rivers. Like you said, we'll talk more next week. But who knows if someone even signs him. Eli Manning retired. That's from that same draft class. So
Yep.
that draft class of quarterbacks is on their last forte. And so, the Steelers have not done enough to be prepared for the Roethlisberger end days. And so, I wouldn't be shocked if there's discussions there. Now, the Steelers are up against the cap, so I don't know if that's a good fit and how they're going to make that work. But I've heard talk, but where that talk comes from, you know how this goes.
Oh yeah.
That could just be a beat writer trying to make a name for themselves and has actually no legs. It's just a made up, plant story.
I could see it happening, and like you said, they do need to focus on that plan. I do think any team can absorb Cam's contract because it's so team friendly, especially if we end up moving him. We're going to have to absorb still the signing, which is going to take a lot out of it. Like, he's got a very cap friendly deal, which is what makes him such an easy tradable asset. But it's going to be something interesting. I have a feeling we're going to touch on it a lot more this offseason. Hopefully my prediction comes true, and we have a resolution for this in the next month. But I do think if it hits the draft, I don't think you see it. I don't think Tepper wants to go into the post-draft days without a full-on quarterback plan in place. I can't see him doing that.
Especially with a new rookie coach on top of that too.
Well, before we wrap up, we got one more question, John, and it actually comes from Scott again, and that is, and I'm going to let you start off with this, man, do you think that Josh Dobbs is ever going to play? Do you ever see Dobbs ever getting some PT?
Well, when you say play, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm going to change your wording around, Scott. I'm trying to, I don't think he's a starter in the NFL, but I think he's going to be on a roster, and he's going to be one injury away from starting games here and there. How many depends on the injury. I don't think he's the long-term answer for any team.
No.
I think that's why the Steelers moved on from him, because they loved him as a person. I mean, the guy is just a really smart kid. Everyone loves him. He doesn't cause any trouble. Very smart. He's like an astrophysicist or something to that effect. And he's going to be he'll be well off even after his football days.
I was about to say. You mentioned how smart he is, dude, and I don't think his major career is actually going to be his playing days. I could actually see him in coaching. The way he knows the game, the way that he's talked about it before. But no, he's not. Like you said, he's a backup. He's a solid backup that might have a 6-week run where, he performs pretty well in the face of injury, and then gets relegated to the backup position once the quarterback's healthy again. But beyond that, I don't see Dobbs as the starting quarterback of any team, and if they do, I see them as having a top 5 pick in the next year's draft.
Yeah,
so that's where I'm at with Dobbs.
And I see him too, Drew, as a guy that kind of calls it a career at a fairly young age. Yeah. He just says, "I got some other things I'd like to do," and I had I had fun in the NFL. I was with some great teams and great organizations, and now it's time to do some other things. And so I don't think he's going to be a guy that sticks around the league 12 years as a backup or one of those types, like a Matt Barkley, let's say. I think he's going to play a few more years as a backup and then say, okay, time to go on with life's work, as Chuck Noll used to say, whether that's coaching or even in the private sector, and whatever he does, like you said, I think he's too smart not to be successful on those other levels. Playing football is a whole different animal.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, whatever it is, like I said, I do think we'll see him on the sidelines. I think you'll see him probably start in the preseason, and you'll probably see him get some PT when his starting quarterback goes down. But that would probably be about it on my end,
Yeah.
at least. But John, guys, before we wrap up today, just want to kind of give you a heads up about this the off season. We are back. We will have a couple weeks off every now and then, but we are back every single Sunday night, not the Thursday show, sadly. Man, I'm having football withdrawal so bad. I bet on the damn Daytona 500 on DraftKings today, and then it's like the first time ever I've cared about NASCAR ever, and then the fucking race gets canceled. Like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah,
This is horse shit.
it's
Like,
all
I'm
your
so
fault.
missing
It's all
football.
It's all Drew's fault because you bet on it with
This
Drew.
is the first time I've ever gave a shit about NASCAR. I was like, oh crap, you can do this on DFS, fine. So that's awful news.
How does that work? You have to pick just who you think wins.
Yeah, and you get points, but for like fastest laps led, like how far they come up, like stuff like that. But yeah, so you can blame me for it being canceled. But
do you want to do ours?
We
like
will be around
NASCAR guys.
No, I know nothing about NASCAR.
Yeah,
dude. I know nothing.
I could name
Call
a few
Val.
guys.
Unless Val calls in, I ain't doing NASCAR. But anyway, guys, we'll be here every single week, like I said, on Sunday nights, and next week we'll be talking a lot more about the quarterbacks, where they're going to go this offseason. We'll also be previewing each division, obviously the upcoming draft, a lot of different stuff. We would love to have you guys come on the show. If you host another show and you'd like to come on as well and guest host for an episode or something, we'd like to do some fun stuff throughout the off season before we announce some really cool stuff leading into season 2 and the 2020 season of Roughing the Passer. So John, if you got nothing else, my friend, I think it's about time to sign off.
All right, yeah, it was nice to be back. And hey, listen, I know it's there is no off season, but I know it is the off season. Hey, we're 1 week closer to the start of the NFL season.
Damn straight. That's one more week. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. So I don't have to play NASCAR on DFS for that much longer, is what you're telling me.
God bless you, man. I wouldn't even know where to start with that.
I didn't either. But anyway, guys, we'll see you next Sunday. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you guys later. See ya.